Listen, here's the harsh reality. Bro, drugs will always kill people, okay? There will always be deaths over drugs. But the thing is people have found another way to flip the script, to get more money, to keep people addicted to drugs. Listen, this is how the government works. You come up with an idea to try to help community. Even if that idea doesn't really help, it just masks a problem and it prolongs the issue, and it appears to be something that is helping the community or humanity or people in general, like harm reduction. So listen, I grew up in the streets all my life. I was My father was doing heroin, smoking crack in front of me, injecting needles in front of me when I was 15 years old. I was taking ecstasy, I was doing cocaine, I was around hard drugs all of my life since I was a child. I was around drug use. I flatlined in McMaster University Hospital for overdosing on cough syrup, um, aka syrup. What they call it in the street, uh, and I have an extensive history of selling drugs and being exposed to drugs since I was 14 years old. I remember sitting in a trap house with a half ball of crack in the Emerald apartment buildings in Hamilton, Ontario, the armpit of Ontario. Sitting in there, and a prostitute asking me if she can suck my dick for a 10 piece, and I'm a 15-year-old kid. So just before you try and judge me and tell me I'm wrong and that I don't know nothing about addiction or drugs or harm reduction or any of that shit, just remember who you're talking to. Because I've been selling drugs since I was 14 years old. I've watched my father uh, deteriorate from doing heroin, needles, oxy 80s, smoking crack, Dilaudid, opioids, painkillers, uh, anything you could possibly imagine my father did in front of me. I also sat in many, many trap houses and watched people overdose and die in front of me, prostitutes, smoking crack. And by the way, from 14 all the way up to 18, I was, probably breathing in secondhand smoke to this shit. And I still didn't let it flip me and turn me into a consumer, because when I was 14, I had an option and I was asked from my father, do you either want to be a producer or a consumer? And you have to pick a side. And there's no such thing as touching both sides when it comes to this game, or else you will inevitably become a consumer of the product, which either was crack, heroin, or whatever it was that we were selling. And I got to foundate myself in a mentality that made me look down and kind of look at addiction as if that was the losing side to things. Like, you can either get money or be a loser and smoke the drug. That was the mentality that was handed off to me, even though that my father did these drugs. He taught me in this manner. And here's the thing. So, I'm 29 years old. That was a long, long time ago, when I was 14, 15 years old. I've been in the streets all of my life, exposed to drug use all of my life, and I never let it flip me, because I got to be the producer before I was a consumer, which developed my outlook on that shit. And I said, either you're a fucking winner or you're a loser. You're either gonna die or you're gonna live. Either you're gonna make money, be broke. Either you're gonna make money or be broke and fucking smoke the drug. And I said, fuck that. I would rather make the money and not be the loser. I'd never touch the drug. And one mistake I always seen every drug dealer make was they would always touch their own fucking product. 10 Crack Commandments, Biggie Smalls said it. Never get high on your own supply. I was like one of the only motherfuckers that stuck by that code. Everybody else was doing coke, doing a hit of their shit to stay up. So, moral of the story is, what I'm trying to say here is, what has happened in the last 10 years and the last 15 years, I've got to witness when it comes to drug use, addiction, you know what I'm saying? And how BC flipped the script so they could profit from addiction and call it harm reduction, call it trying to help. It appears, and you know what? The craziest thing is, it may help. You know what I'm saying? I understand the logic behind uh, testing or giving people clean drugs and helping them do the drugs in a clean environment, in a clean way to stop the spread of HIV and reduce the 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 amount of deaths when it comes to overdosing and bad drugs and shit like that. But you're fighting a losing battle and you're doing it in the wrong way. And let me explain before you freak out. I know this world probably better than the motherfuckers that are pushing the harm reduction shit. These are people that have never touched drugs that are trying to push this shit. And the guys that have touched drugs and made it out, they're looking for a way to sell drugs legally and profit from it. They found a way to exploit the game, get their foot in the door, and be a legal drug dealer and appear to be helping at the same time. But behind the scenes, there's other shit going on. How do I know this? Because I'm a fucking real dude from the fucking street that really lived that life, that's been selling drugs, been around kingpins, gangsters, pen timers, hitters, fucking killers, and I know how the game works. The whole fucking system is corrupt. The judge, the lawyer, the crown. They all know each other, and it's all about money, which dictates the end result. Even know that a crime is a crime. The whole fucking game is rigged. Okay, the government, the justice system. Okay, you have to know this, and the only way you're ever gonna know this is if you've been through the system yourself. If you've been through addiction, if you've been criminally charged for possession of drugs, if you grew up around your father sticking a needle in his fucking vein and smoking heroin and fucking crack and oxy 80s in front of you off a fucking piece of tinfoil and a straw. Um, all of your childhood life and all of your adult life, being exposed, being homeless, and being in the street all across Canada, from Hamilton to Toronto to Peterborough to Kitchener to Waterloo to then Kamloops to Vernon to Vancouver Island, Victoria, Nanaimo, Courtney. I've been in all of these places, and I've also been homeless in the streets around drug use, crime elements, gangsters, drug dealers, all that shit. Um, all of my fucking life. So there's nothing that you can tell me because I have the real life experience to the left, as far as it fucking goes. I was around the kingpins, all right, and they know this shit too. So the government's just a big fucking gangster that found a way to profit off of addiction and homelessness, flipped the script and made it appear to be that they're there to help, and it may even help 5%. But when we say help, what does help really mean? Help, in our eyes, is trying to reduce the level of deaths and make it cleaner to do drugs and more supportive, which may decrease the amount of deaths, but you don't get it. You're trying to basically put out a fire with fire. Like, it doesn't work like that. It's never going to work. The only thing you're doing is, like, it will work. The less deaths will happen, but they will inevitably happen later. Just because you spared the motherfucker 7 times doesn't mean he's not gonna die on the 10th time he does a fucking smash and the Narcan doesn't work. He's gonna eventually die. What you're doing is you're prolonging and you're preserving a customer, okay? Think about this. A drug dealer. Like, let's say I'm a drug dealer, right? Do you think I want my fucking custies or my customers or my fucking junkies or my consumers to die from the product I'm giving them? No. If they die, my money stops. My money flow stops. There goes. I want to build my clientele this. I want to make more and more money, and I want to preserve my fucking customers to make sure they live as long as I can get them to live. So they can keep buying drugs off me and they can keep consuming and I can keep them where they're at. Keep them addicted. Listen, if you're not from the street and you never sold crack and you never fucking did drugs, you never watched your father stick a needle in his vein and smoke fucking heroin and oxy 80s in front of you, you can't talk to me. You're not in a position to do so. You're not in a position to debate this with me. Listen, that's what this is all about. I could go ahead right now and go ahead and get a job getting paid to do harm reduction and give people clean drugs, and at the same fucking time, I could be selling drugs out of my other pocket the whole time, and I have a legitimate reason to be there in that area amongst users, and it appears that I am doing harm reduction, but at the same fucking time, I'm selling drugs to these motherfuckers. So I found a fucking slick way to still be a drug dealer and make money legally and at the same fucking time push my drugs under the fucking table. Imagine that. Not saying that's every fucking case, every scenario, but you just opened up an open door for me to do that. Right now, I have the lived experience, I have the stability, I have even the credentials. Like, I could get a job right now. I'm not going to say any names of any organizations, but I could get any job right now in any organization based around harm reduction. And I could literally be out there appearing to be helping people. But at the same time, little do people know that it's a way for me to get my foot in the door so I can get in there to sell drugs. And it looks like I'm just helping. If you're a motherfucker that looks like me and you're sitting there with fucking gold rings and gold chains and a watch sitting there downtown East Hastings. Actually, never mind. The police let drug dealers out here thrive and sell fucking drugs, and they don't try and book you or arrest you or charge you. And it's pretty much legal to possess drugs and do drugs out in the open. British Columbia is a little bit different. They allow it out here because they've seen how much money they can make off addiction and homelessness and say, oh, sorry, it didn't work this year, all of our efforts, so we're going to have to apply for another $100 million grant from the federal government so we can keep these programs running to continue to hopefully make progression in the future. So it's a big money grab and it's a big way to make money. All you have to do is come up with a legitimate way that appears to be or does help people or the community in a way where you can look like the good guy, but at the same time, you can exploit that position, right? You've just opened up the opportunity for that to happen, and there are people doing that right now. Here's why this will never work. And try and look at it from this perspective. Just take me in for a second. I remember being a drug addict. I robbed motherfuckers for money so I could get more ecstasy, more coke, more booze, more mushrooms. I robbed people and kicked doors in and stole cars and crashed them through fucking people's houses. Okay? I did a lot of gangster shit to get my shit. You know what I'm saying? Where I come from in Ontario, you get caught with a fucking possession of any drug, you're going to fucking jail. If you get caught doing drugs, you're going to jail. If you get caught with a fucking crack pipe that has residue in it, you're going to fucking jail for like 30 to 60 to 90 days. Guess what's going to happen? If you're a drug user and you're using drugs, you're going to go to jail. You're going to dry out. You're going to wake the fuck up. You're going to lose your addiction because you have no fucking choice. And the drugs that are getting into that prison and that jail when you're in it, if you're a drug user and you're a customer, 9 times out of 10, the chances are you don't have the fucking canteen money to feed your fucking drug habit in jail because it's fucking 10 times more expensive for 10 times less of your choice of drug. So it's unrealistic to think that an addict is going to go to jail and just continue doing his shit in jail unless he has a lot of money. But that's not the addiction is not the thing, it's the money that's the thing keeping the addiction going. If you go to jail, you're going to dry out, you're going to come out of jail, and now you have a actual moment of clarity, and now you can make an informed decision if you want to pursue in that lifestyle or not any further. And where I come from, I've seen guys that were drug addicts that made it out of the game, went to jail and cleared out, and it kicked their fucking gears back in. And let me tell you something, jail does not bring correction. It never has. It's unjust, and jail will never bring correction. It actually makes you worse, turns you into a fucking monster, because you have no choice but to become a demon or a monster to survive in there. And you might even only be in there for an assault, and you're in there with fucking 5 guys that are on there for first degree murder, and you get to sit right beside them. Yeah, that's how jail is. So, let me explain something to you. A drug dealer wants his customer to stay alive for as long as fucking possible. If that means Narcan in the motherfucker so he wakes up and tomorrow he buys another ball of crack, that's exactly what we want. Good shit. Now listen, so does the government. Because the government is profiting from this shit and has their fucking hand in the cookie jar. Little do you know. And they're sitting there with a smile on their face saying, hey, we're helping, we're dumping this much money into investing into these programs to bring harm reduction and help a drug addict do his drug in a clean manner to preserve him from dying. And then on top of it, make it easier for him to do his drug. Let me fucking tell you something personally for me in my own life and me growing up around drug dealers and drug users all of my life, because I sold crack and I sold meth and I sold heroin and I sold ecstasy and I sold cocaine and I sold weed and I sold Valiums, prescription pills like Oxy 80s and shit like that, from 14 all the way up until I was like 20 years old. And I grew up in that environment amongst these type of people that do this shit. I sat in traps and I watched, people consume their drugs all fucking day and night, week on, week off, day after day. And then I saw, when I went back to the condo spot with the drug dealers and all their money, and we're counting it all and shit. So I've been on both sides of the fence. But here's the thing. That's what the government's doing. And it looks like they're trying to help. I'm telling you right now, drugs are always going to kill a motherfucker. It doesn't matter if you Narcan them or not, and you preserve them for longer or not. Eventually, that shit's going to kill them. And if you keep giving them their drug, easy access to a fucking drug, and they're addicted to that drug, they will never have that moment of clarity. They will never be able to escape that addiction and get off of it independently if they don't get some type of intervention. Some shit has to happen to you. Either someone has to die close to you to wake your ass up, which even still doesn't work because the chemical addiction has a fucking hold on you. It's not you, it's the addiction. It literally controls you. You do not know what you're doing. So you need to be stopped in your fucking tracks. Somehow, some way, it's a blessing, it's a miracle if you get caught with a fucking crack pipe or a piece of meth, because you're going to go to jail for 90 days and dry the fuck out. You're going to get sick. You're going to get dope sick. You're going to be in pain, crying, screaming, snot, drool. But guess what's going to happen? You're going to be no longer addicted to that drug. Your fucking senses will kick back in. Now you have a perfect opportunity to make a clear decision if you want to go back to that life or not. And the majority of the time when your feelings come back because you got to dry the fuck out from all those drugs, and you can feel and shit, and you can really feel emotion, you think, fuck, I don't want to go back to that shit. See? Now look at what harm reduction's doing. Look at what British Columbia is doing. They're legalizing drugs, legalizing the possession of drugs, legalizing the possession of paraphernalia, and then they're giving you fucking drugs and saying, here's clean drugs, it doesn't have no fentanyl in it. And that is their excuse. They found an exploit and a way to exploit a scenario to profit and make money from it and employ people from it. And then it also gives the big gangster motherfuckers, I'm not going to say no names of no big huge entities, but it gives them an opportunity to now be legal drug dealers and appear to be there for harm reduction purposes and be there to help people with addictions. The whole fucking thing is a front, and unfortunately the people, the addicts have fallen for it because it's beneficial to them in every fucking way. It's a cleaner way to do their drug, so they're at less risk of getting HIV, shit like that, not sharing needles, shit like that. There's more an abundance of supplies, which is cool, but not really. It's never a good thing when you're getting help doing a fucking drug that's inevitably killing you and making you addicted anyways. It doesn't make any fucking sense, but it makes sense. That's the problem. But it makes less sense than it does make sense. Okay? So people will always find a legitimate, this is what criminals do. We find legitimate things and we fucking find a way to twist it and profit from it and make it appear like we're here to help and we're doing a good thing. That's what we fucking do. That's what gangsters do. That's what mafia does. That's what the mob does. Well, guess what? That's what the government is doing in British Columbia. So it's a lot bigger than you think. There's politicians that have their hand in the cookie jar and they are directly linked with the organized fucking gangsters and they're all fucking in on it. And it looks like a big display of trying to help addiction and harm reduction. And the addicts will agree, it helps them. It may have preserved somebody's life, and some of them may have been able to beat their addiction, and they thought that was because of the harm reduction, the free needles, the easy access to drugs, the cleaner access to drugs. And these places that will literally, you can walk in and they will literally inject you correctly and help you do your fucking drug. And they thought it was because of that saved them from their addiction, but it was really them. And they were always destined to overcome that addiction. But that will create the idea that this shit works, which it does. A small percentage, it does. But at the same time, it's causing more damage than it is fixing something. All it's doing is masking something. And that's what the government does too through pharmaceutical drugs. Any problem, they will find it, say you have a problem, then they will sell you the solution. They will give you another drug to beat the other drug you're addicted to, and then you become addicted to their pharmaceutical drug, like, methadone? Right. And then you become addicted to that, and you end up fucking dying from that. Instead of the fucking heroin that you were originally addicted to, you end up dying from the fucking methadone that you took because they upped the fucking milligrams of it and didn't say anything, and people thought they were taking the same dosage, and a fucking million people died from that. I watched that happen. Buddy, if you think the government loves you and cares about you, and you think that they really are trying to fix addiction out here, and they're not just profiting from it, I feel really bad for you, and it sucks because you're probably a good person that really just wants a solution. And unfortunately, you've been deceived like everybody else. But the only way you would be able to identify this and understand this and know this is if you really come from the street for real. And I'm not talking about BC. BC is the fucking suburbs. This ain't the hood. This ain't the poverty line. Toronto, Hamilton, GTA area is. And that's where I come from. Whether you like that or not, whether you agree with that or not, that's the fucking facts. This is the fucking richest province in Canada. This is the suburbs. And Victoria is the capital of the suburbs, the capital of British Columbia. There is no better fucking place you can be other than BC. It's beautiful. It's the safest place that you can be in Canada, as much as these guys want to be fucking a part of the gangster shit out here really bad. They're all shooting each other and being coke boys, and they're following this culture that doesn't even belong to them and doesn't even originate in this province, but they want to play that game. Well, if you really think you're a gangster and you want to play that fucking shit, go do that shit in Toronto. Bring that shit out to Ontario, and you won't be a dominant entity anymore. You will be at the bottom of the fucking food chain, and you won't survive out there because it's predominantly all blacks. And in BC, it's all skinhead motherfuckers, wannabe bikers, and fucking big juice monkey suburban fucking kids that had families and parents. that got their hands on some money and stole their fucking dad's gun and shot somebody because they watched a fucking Tupac video. Anyways, that's a different story. So here's the problem. Addiction is going to last longer now. The customer is going to buy more drugs off of the drug dealer for longer because there has to be an end result. You have to let nature take its course, especially when it comes to addiction. I know that's fucked up because if you could save... I lost my first love. My first love died from fentanyl, okay? So don't tell me that I don't want to save somebody's fucking life. Because if I could, I would. But I knew that it was inevitable that either she was going to live or she was going to fucking die. And she died. One thing or the other has to take place. But if you keep Narcaning a motherfucker and they just keep overdosing and you keep bringing them back to life, that is like the most fucking traumatizing thing. Like, the outcome has to come regardless. You're just prolonging the situation, but the outcome is still gonna happen. I get it. It's giving somebody the opportunity, giving them another chance at life, basically, to figure that out. But here's the issue. After you Narcan them, there's a fucking building right across the street that offers you clean drugs and a needle and somebody to inject you to help you do the fucking drug right after you overdose and leave the hospital. So they're just helping you do it. You're just helping people stay addicted. If when I was addicted to drugs, if people just kept giving me the fucking drugs and made it legal so I don't gotta hide it and I don't gotta fucking worry about going to jail and drying out or any of that shit, I would have never fucking stopped doing drugs. I would have kept doing drugs. Because when you're addicted to something, the only thing that's gonna stop that addiction is something traumatic fucking happening to you. Either you fucking die and come back to life and that kicks your ass and you stop, or you go to jail and you dry out, or somebody close to you fucking dies. And usually that's still not even enough to kick somebody out of addiction because it's a chemical thing. It's not a decision. It's not a consciousness. And that's what people don't get. It's a chemical reaction. Certain chemicals are attracted to each other and they fucking draw towards each other. You know what I'm saying? It's a chemical reaction. It's a chemical addiction. It's chemical imbalancement in your brain, which means you're not thinking properly and your actions are not coming from informed decisions. They're coming from a place of chemical need. Okay? So the brain is going to do whatever the fuck it has to do to survive, and it thinks that it needs to get that chemical now in order to survive. So your body's going to do shit your brain doesn't even know what the fuck it's doing just to get the drug. That's why this shit doesn't work. And I promise you, in the next 5 to 10 years, you will not see addiction decrease. You will see it increase. There will be more drug addicts. Drug dealers will make more fucking money. Okay? Crime will increase. And the politicians and the rich will get richer, and the poor will get poorer. But you will see less deaths, and they will use that statistic in order to justify this entire fucking pyramid scheme that you've all bought into. Okay? And you will see the statistics, and they will be accurate. There will be less deaths, and there will be less people, cross-contamination, less HIV, less shit like that. But you don't get it. Those outcomes have to happen, and they're going to happen regardless. That's not the way you defeat addiction or fucking help an addict overcome addiction. Coming from a fucking from someone that's been through drug addiction and been exposed to it through my entire family and everybody I loved, including my best friends, all of my motherfucking life. I am the only motherfucker that I know that beat addiction and never fell back into it because of the way I think and what I know to be true, which is what I just told you. So I know this is going to insult and hurt a lot of people, and I don't mean for that to happen. I really mean well, and I want to come up with a solution, and this is my perspective based off of my own true lived experience, and not just in the suburbs of British Columbia. from the real fucking hood and the real slums. Corey Resilient, share this video.